Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. We're back in business, breaking down another fight card. But this fight card, UFC Vegas 39, got a little decimated. A lot of bouts to start off with, but we ended up with 10. That's all right, because sometimes we need quality over quantity, and hopefully we get that this weekend. Folks, I hope you know that a lot of these low-key fight cards that we've been getting with not the most prominent, most notable names have been turning out to be absolute bangers. I believe it was just last week at UFC Vegas 38 where almost all of the prelim fights ended in a finish, and the main card, was a little sleepy, a little drowsy, so the prelims carried it. So we're gonna give out the message that we always do: watch the prelims. Me and my co-host AJ, we are going to bring it up to you once again. So let me bring him in, the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself. Brother, what is happening, my man? You excited for the fights this weekend, man? How you feeling?
Man, I am excited for this fight. You said it yourself, Derek. These are a little on the unnotable side, I guess, if you will. A lot of these people are still on the come up, man. But there's a few absolute heaters on that prelim, on the main card, man. There's we saw, Randy Brown's gonna be on this one, man. There's a lot of. What surprised me of this card, it's a very wrestling heavy, ground game heavy card we got coming up. So if you're a fan of that, it's gonna be heat all day, man.
And even if you're not a fan of that, man, sit down, watch the fights, and become a fan of it, because this is mixed martial arts. This is not boxing. This is not karate, not taekwondo, man. Come on. You can go watch those things on your own time. We got combat, karate, and all that fun stuff going on, but this is mixed martial arts, and you got to be able to use all of your skills, all of your tools in order to become victorious. But AJ, I wanted to ask you really quickly, man, since we only got 10 bouts, right? We only got 5 prelim fights and 5 main card fights. In terms of odds, man, there aren't anybody who are really huge favorites. Sometimes we'll get the minus 800, minus 500, things like that. So I want to ask you, I'm just going to pull out these names and I want you to guess for me. Just tell me off the top of your head, who do you think would be the biggest favorite against their respective opponents? So the first name I'm going to say is Chris Gutierrez, Alexander Romanov, Damon Jackson, Lupi Godinez, or Steve Garcia. Out of those names, who do you think would be the biggest favorite against their respective opponent?
Man, so I know Lupi Godinez just had a late replacement, so it might be there, but I'm gonna go Alexander Romanov, man. My homie Romanov, that dude is killing it. Yeah, that's what I gotta say. Who is it?
Well, I'll tell you, that's not a bad guess, because you're right. It is Alexander Romanov. He opened the week as a minus 440 favorite against Jared Vanderaa, which is actually a little surprising because Vanderaa is a bad man. But the next biggest favorite that we have on there, AJ, which really surprised me, is going to be someone we're going to be talking about here in a second, but Steve Garcia, who is 0-1 in his UFC tenure, who took a short notice fight in his UFC debut, and against Charlie Ontiveros, he is a minus 310 favorite with a plus 250 comeback. I will make note that Charlie Ontiveros is making his lightweight debut. He actually made his UFC debut at middleweight, and he wants to fight at welterweight, but he's fighting at lightweight this week. I don't know. It's interesting. We'll talk about it. Folks, if you haven't yet, drop a like, subscribe. We know about 80+% of the people who tune in to our videos each and every single week, who get the gambling game, who get the wagering game, and go make some green on that. Y'all aren't subscribed, man. So drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff helps boost us up the algorithm and lets other people who need to make that money, who want to get these educated takes on the fights from people who actually put in the work and watch the film and grind tape. Come on, man. Subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate you guys. But AJ, man, we didn't do it last week, but we got to do it this week, man. We got a slick poster on our hands, my man. And I got the pen, I got the pad ready. Let's do a little poster review, my man. 1 to 10, AJ. Describe what you're seeing, and then tell me what you're giving it, 1 to 10.
Man, I really like this poster a lot, Derek. Again, I'm probably not going to give it a 10. I'm out here harsh with the critics over here. But no, I really like this one. I like the way that they're changing things up. It's just not the classic. It almost looks like they put the classic poster above, with the two faces staring off, and then they made a new one, like action figures going at it on the bottom. I like this one a lot, man. I'm gonna give it an 8.
just giving it. God, you cannot please my man AJ, man. You can't, I don't know what they got to do.
Perfection is hard to attain, Derick, man. But there's some really good ones out there. This is way better than a couple we've seen. So
absolutely. So hey, graphic designers in the UFC, you got to step your game up, man. For AJ at least, but for me, you know what, man? I do like the color contrast. We got the pink hues, we got the red. You know, you got the clash, you got the name going down the middle, Dern versus Rodriguez, and the little face-off between them in the boxing stances. Maybe it's a preview of what we're gonna actually see on Saturday night. Excuse me, folks. And for this one, you know what? I'm not gonna lie to you, AJ. I really dig this one. It's appealing, it's eye-popping, and I'm not gonna lie, I would actually get this poster and put it up on my wall. So I'm gonna give it a 9, right? I'm gonna give it a solid 9 right there. I'm gonna up the ante on you a little bit, but hey. All right, the poster is in the rear view mirror, man. We'll put that one down, and hopefully the poster makes up for some of the canceled bouts that we got, man, because you know what I mean? It's going to be interesting today. But, all right, AJ, man, perfect timing. Let's get into...
For some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
All right, AJ, so let's start off with the one we were just talking about, that sleeper that you pulled up on us. So a lightweight bout, minus 310 favorite is Steve Garcia, the mean machine Steve Garcia, who is facing off against the American bad boy and Charlie Ontiveros. And before we talk about sleeper, rate that nickname 1 to 10, the American bad boy and the mean machine. Which one you like better, and give me on a scale of 1 to 10. What do you think of them?
Man, I like the American bad boy a little bit better. It's the mean machine kind of sounds like something you'd see out of like Remember the Titans or something,
Sure.
you know, old school 70s kind of stylish. I guess it's not bad if that's your game. I give the American bad boy like I give it like an 8. It reminds me of like Chael Sonnen, you know, a bad boy, a gangster. I forget Chael Sonnen's actual nickname, but it reminds me of that kind of aesthetic, man. What would you give him?
Well, I'll say for the American bad boy, I don't like that it's a play on Tito Ortiz as the Huntington Beach bad boy, right? You know, so I'm going to give it like a 6 for plagiarism a little bit. And I think Chael Sonnen was the American gangster. I think that was his nickname, something like that. And for Steve Garcia, the mean machine, man, I used to ride this little contraption when I was a kid. It was called a green machine, man. It had 3 wheels, 2 on the back, 1 on the front, and that's all I could think of. Or when you go to Bamboo Sushi in Portland, shout out Portland for that. They got the green machine, one of my favorite sushi rolls, man. So, yeah, it doesn't feel very menacing to me personally, but I do think that it is indicative of his fight style because the man is a pressure fighter. So I'm going to give that a solid 6. And yeah, 6 across the board for both, you know. But that's neither here nor there. We're not here to break down nicknames. We're here to break down some fights, man. So AJ, tell me what stood out to you on this one, man. We got 11-4 Steve Garcia versus 11-7 Charlie Ontiveros, man. Both 0-1 in their UFC tenure so far. Let's talk about it, brother.
Yeah, man, both 0-1, but we actually got some heat behind this one, Derick, man. Garcia, he's an absolute brawler, heavy-handed, and he swings for the fences literally from the jump. You give this dude any little bit of room, man, he's looking to take your head off. Good on the feet, needs a little bit of improvement on the ground, but like you said, still young in the game. Taking a short notice fight in his UFC debut just proves how much grit he actually has, and he's been training hard for this one. Expect this dude to come out in an absolute fury, hands flying. Mean Machine is, like you said, a great nickname for this dude because he is a machine and he's swinging like he's mean, man. So it's good. Ontiveros, you're gonna remember him from the time when he fought Holland in his I believe that was his UFC debut. It might have been the one after, but he got slammed on his neck injury, not a good look. And before the neck injury, man, this dude showed really good kicks, really good distance management. He has really good like base groundwork for the UFC. Again, needs a little bit of work on his ground game, but still a very good fighter. And the weight issues. I mean, the big thing, he's a very skinny guy. You said he was dropping down weight divisions back down. Now he's finally at 155. I believe this is his home. Very tall, very skinny guy, very lanky, like really good at distance management. So I think it's going to work for him, man. This is a sleeper to me, Derick, because both fighters were dominated in their first time coming out on stage. And you know when your ego's bruised, man, that's when the beast comes out and they have some ground to cover to really, prove that they actually belong in the big show. And with all the cuts going on that Dana White has, it's time to actually get it done because your job's on the line, especially when you're new in this game like that, man. You don't have a big resume behind you. We have a long, lanky striker who likes to keep his pop and his shots from range, and a shorter striker who's going to try to take your head off with every single punch. The unpredictability in this one is really what excites me. And yeah, man, we got a lot of fun coming for this one. What'd you think of when I said this sleeper up?
Well, I liked it because, first and foremost, man, if you look at the competition these guys both faced in their UFC debut, man, it's stiff. So it was Luis Pena is the one who put it on Steve Garcia, man, and he just grappled him up for 3 rounds straight, man. It was a clinic right there. So that's sometimes a little more demoralizing because it's 3 rounds of I can't do anything against this guy no matter how hard I try. For Charlie Ontiveros, like you said, it was Kevin Holland, and he got slammed on his neck. So it's a little fluky, right? Because how often are you seeing a dude get slammed on their neck and then they're like, oh, my neck, verbal tap. You know, it was kind of weird. So I think for him, he can have a little less of a bruised ego and come in and say like, all right, man, we're going to actually get it this time. I was fighting at 185. That was just a weird debut. For Steve Garcia, he got something to prove here for sure, man. The other thing that I like, man, is these guys are actually pretty experienced outside of the UFC, AJ. So for Steve Garcia, he's fought tough competition outside of the UFC, including Ronnie Lawrence, who is in the UFC now, Ricky Tercios, and Desmond Torres. But for Ontiveros, this dude is a Texas regional scene dude, and he's also fought in Bellator, man. Did you know that he's fought Jeff Neal and Michael Venom Page? He lost to both of them, but he's got that experience under his belt. How much does that count to you, AJ?
It's actually counts pretty good, man. If you can go in there and you see kind of different looks around, I was noting that whenever I was doing the research too. This dude, even if you're getting in with some serious real deal people, man, that's good looks out there.
Absolutely.
And what I like a lot about the Steve Garcia fight and when he was fighting Luis Pena, he didn't accept. He was getting handled. Don't get me wrong. He was getting handled on the ground. He had that backpack put on him, but he was throwing hands back like a madman, just trying to get any sort of punch in he could. And this dude's wild, bro.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because on my fighter notes for Steve Garcia, I literally the first thing I put is he's a wild man. Like, you know what I'm saying? He is a wild man, pressure fighter, crazy blitzing attacks, and but he doesn't have much on his back, man. And I will say in around that second or third round, you could see the look on his face of complete defeat, of just like, God damn it, man. Just like, let's get back up to the feet. Let's do that. And that's why I prefaced in the very beginning of the show, folks, this is mixed martial arts. This is not boxing. So just because you get at striking does not mean you're going to win the fight, man. And Charlie Ontiveros, man, Taekwondo striker. He's kind of got that karate, Michael Venom Page style, that sideways style, but very, very, very fast hands that I think will lend well to the 155-pound division. Long striker, and talk about a man who goes out on a shield, man. All 7 of his losses are via knockout. So hopefully we change course this week, but it'll be a banger, folks. It's going to be an interesting contrast because both of these dudes are good on the feet. I don't really think either of them are going to want to go to the ground, but if it does go that way, Ontiveros has a little more experience on the ground. He does have a couple submission wins under his belt. But all right, man. Like I said, debut at 185 for Ontiveros, at 155 for this fight. We'll see how it goes. Now let's move on to the next sleeper, AJ. This is one that I got. Featherweight bout, man. Charles Rosa versus Damon Jackson. So we got Boston Strong and Charles Rosa, who is a plus 150 underdog, versus Damon the Leech Jackson, AJ. I wanted to note this because I thought this was interesting. Did you know that for Charles Rosa, he has alternated wins and losses in each of his last 10 fights? So in the UFC, he has approximately 10 fights. He has 5-5 in those 10 fights. And every single fight, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. For 10 straight fights, man. If you were a fighter, AJ, and you had that type of record, how is your psyche standing up to that? Are you like, damn, I can never get on a roll? Or are you saying, if I lose, it's okay because I know I can win the next one? Like, how are you thinking about it?
Man, that's a weird double-edged sword. I guess if I'm on that up and down streak, you know, riding that roller coaster, and I get the win, I'm telling my management to book me a can for the next one so I can just get ahead of the curve, man. Because that's rough. Yeah, that's a weird mental battle to have to face.
Absolutely, and going against the man that he's going against, and Damon Jackson, it's going to be a very tough test. Now, these are both BJJ black belts, but the jiu-jitsu is a little different on each side. Charles Rosa, he doesn't always use his jiu-jitsu. Sometimes he's a little complacent and he will just strike with you, man. He's a very balanced fighter. I see him. He's good on the feet. He's good on the ground, but he's not like amazing in one category. Now, Damon Jackson, good on the feet, amazing on the ground. Now, I say he has Ryan Hall-esque jiu-jitsu in the way that every time you go in on him, guillotine, fucking Kimura lock, you know what I'm saying? Rear naked choke, like he's grabbing something. Darce, it does not matter. Like he's grabbing something every time, so he's going to make you pay. And that's the big thing that really stood out to me on this matchup, folks, is that Damon Jackson is very undercounted in my opinion. Dude has 3 knockouts, 14 submissions, 1 decision, but he doesn't really get the respect that he should get as a mixed martial artist. People just think of him as the jiu-jitsu guy. Charles Rosa, 3 knockouts, 8 submissions, 3 decisions. So sometimes when we get these 2 jiu-jitsu guys who are really good, you're not really going to see a jiu-jitsu match. You're going to see a kickboxing match, generally speaking, when you get wrestler on wrestler, jiu-jitsu on jiu-jitsu. But for this one, I don't think there's anybody who can discourage Damon Jackson from using his jiu-jitsu except maybe Orion Hall, and that is a matchup that I would actually love to see right there. Nonetheless, AJ, when we're talking about this matchup, notable wins for Charles Rosa, Justin James, Kevin Aguilar, and Sean Soriano. Those are some good strikers, man. We got some good strikers across the board. Now, for the featherweight and Damon Jackson, right? Well, both featherweights, but we got Mirsad Bektik, who is a wrestling machine. He submitted him, man. That was a very tough fought matchup. And Levi Moles, man, who is a Texas, he's a Texas cat, man. He trained over there with Cody Freeman up there in Texas. You know what I'm saying? And dude is very, very skilled. He's got legitimate jiu-jitsu as well. So let me just ask you this, AJ. For Damon Jackson, his first decision win came after 9 stoppage wins in a row, right? So this dude is a certified killer. However, he can get it done via decision as well. And for Charles Rosa, it's not always that way. You'll see a lot of decisions. You might see a knockout. You might see a submission. It's kind of random there. Do you think Charles Rosa is going into this fight saying, the jiu-jitsu is fine. It'll be all right. You know what I mean? I'm a black belt. Or do you think he's saying, I'm going to have to fucking be careful? What do you think?
I think he's going in saying he's going to have to be careful, man, because the Leech is absolutely crazy on the ground. And it's wild because even in his last fight, he didn't really have to utilize it that much, but you know how gangster he is on the ground, man. What I like most about Jackson, obviously his ground game is absolutely impeccable, but he has this super sneaky knee that he likes. He has a step-in knee. He'll literally throw it as everything's coming in. He'll step in, whoop, knee right up the middle. It's very dangerous when people are looking to shoot heads down on the ground and against a jiu-jitsu guy like Rosa, where Rosa is very fluid, but he likes to do that switch stance, but he can get a little rigid sometimes. So if he plans that knee coming in, it's going to be very interesting to see how it works.
I agree with you, man. So it should be a very, very fun matchup over here. But folks, don't forget, those are our 2 main sleepers, right? But let's just hit on a couple of these other prelim matchups. Chris Gutierrez versus Felipe Colares, man. That's a bantamweight matchup that's going to be very, very fun. We already said it. Alexander Romanov versus Jared Vanderaa. That's a must-watch right there. You have to tune into the heavyweights who are killing it. Let's not forget, Romanov got a very questionable win in his last matchup, a win that he probably shouldn't have had. It probably should have been a loss. So I think he's going to be coming for blood, coming for heads this week. And Jared Vanderaa, man, he's no slouch. Do not discount the man. I do see a little bit of value in that plus 340 money line right there, folks. I will just say that. And then Lupi Godinez, man, she was supposed to fight Sam Hughes. She was slated to fight Sam Hughes. Sam Hughes had to pull out, and now she's fighting Silvana Gomez Juarez, who is 10-2, is actually a lot more experienced than Sam Hughes. So we'll see how she fares in the big show. And yeah, man, that basically kills it all because, like I said, we only got 5 prelims, man. It's going to be short and sweet night on Saturday, folks. But all right, AJ, let's move on to a little main card, my man.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
All right, my man. This is a very interesting matchup we got here, AJ. We got Phil Megatron Hawes, who is a minus 280 favorite with the plus 230 comeback for Deron Winn, man. Now, Deron Winn, small guy, 5'6", 70-inch reach, man. He's very small for the welterweight division, or for the middleweight division, excuse me. But do not let that fool you, man, because he is sweeping people much larger than him, man. He's throwing you on your head. This is a man who's coming, he's more or less a prodigy of Daniel Cormier, right? Fighting out of AKA, American Kickboxing Academy. Now, Phil Hawes, listen, he's a Sanford MMA product, but I think in his last fight, he spent a little time at Tiger Muay Thai getting that Muay Thai kickboxing kind of going for him. So we're seeing a different animal for Phil Hawes, and for Deron Winn, we know what the man is capable of. My question to you, AJ, is do you ever think that these dudes, the Phil Hawes, Gerald Meerschaert, he beat Deron Winn, but you know, a couple of these guys, Antonio Arroyo, right? Do you think they're looking at Deron Winn being like, this little guy, like, come on, man, that's lying. He ain't gonna do nothing against me, man. Do you think psychologically there truly is some of that going into it, where they're maybe discounting Deron Winn based on his size alone?
Oh, 100%, man. You almost have to. And he's a little thicker as well, man. He like you said it correctly, Derick. He takes that Daniel Cormier approach. He really is an AKA Daniel Cormier prodigy. He almost took the reins once he left, not necessarily in the gym, but more so in the style and how he doesn't really cut. He does actually cut a little bit of weight, because in his last fight against Antonio Arroyo, they were like 196, 195. So Deron Winn's cutting down. But yeah, 5'6". There has to be something when you look at a small man like that. You know, I'm only 5'9", so even if I was squaring up against a 5'6" dude, I'd be thinking the same thing. Like, look at this little guy. What's up, man? Yeah. So I can only imagine Phil Hawes, 6 foot. That's a whole 6-inch difference right there. It counts, man. And I don't think it actually has the same effect going opposite though. I don't think Deron Winn has that kind of short man insecurity going forward. I think he's solid on the ground, and he works his style very well to be able to match his height going forward. What do you think?
Dude, absolutely. Look at the last 3 people he's fought. Antonio Hoyo, I believe he's 6 foot, if not taller. Gerald Mearshart, 6 foot, if not taller. Darren Stewart, 6 foot, if not taller. Like he like for these type of guys, for Daniel Cormier, I think he said it himself too. He was like, almost everybody I fought has been bigger and taller and longer than me. But that's not a problem because guess what this dude's game plan is? It's wrestling. So let's talk about the wrestling here, AJ. Phil Hawes is a very experienced wrestler, very, very good wrestler. We already know that about him. He had a very epic match against Kyle Dawkins in their last fight where they were going back and forth, taking each other down. And one thing that we know, this is a given across the board for wrestlers. Wrestlers love putting people on their back, but they hate being put on their back. So the question becomes, who is better off of their back, Phil Hawes or Deron Winn? Because it's interesting. Both of them don't like to be on their back, in all honesty, man. So I think whoever gets the top control and who can maintain the top control is going to win this fight. Who do you think that lends to a little bit more, AJ?
That's a good question because I haven't really seen either of them on their back too much have to work, have to actually get up and get it going. I'd probably say Phil Hawes just because of the length he has. He's able to throw the hips up, get the feet going, kind of work something if he can, or even just kind of shrimp out and get up on the fence. But I don't discount Deron Winn, man. He's very sneaky. He's very, very sneaky on the ground game. But I'd go Phil Hawes. What about you?
Well, you know what? I think it's tough, and I'm kind of going Deron Winn here. And the reason why is because I think that there is a how would you put it? I think that for Deron Winn, the explosiveness of being shorter, and you know what I mean? You're wider, you're shorter, and you can blast up on those hips. It's going to be harder to get to his hips as well, man. So I think there's going to be a little of that edge right there for Deron Winn. However, Phil Hawes is just a big man. And that's the thing that has made me go back and forth on this. I'm like, Phil Hawes is so large of a human being. You know what I mean? Is he going to be able to just smother Deron Winn? But then again, Gerald Mearshart, right? He wasn't able to do that. The only thing he was able to do is hurt Deron Winn and then lock him up with the submission after. But just based on wrestling alone, if he couldn't do it, I mean, come on, man. This is Gerald Mearshart. This is a dude who's a legend, who's a great grappler. Let's talk about stand-up, though, man, because Deron Winn is sometimes susceptible to saying, like, fuck it, we're not going to wrestle. Let's just stand and bang. He did that for almost 3 rounds against Mearshart. So Phil Hawes, man, improved striking. Like I said, Tiger Muay Thai, he just did that camp and all that. But Deron Winn, I think he has a speed advantage here, man. This dude has thunderous hooks. Thunderous hooks, man. And because he's so small, and don't get me, like, no disrespect, I'm not saying it like that, but being a smaller person, you have a smaller target for Phil Hawes to be able to hit. Hawes likes to beat up the body a little bit, go for the big hooks. I think Deron Winn is going to be able to outpace him a little bit in that speed, and the cardio is going to become a question for both of these fighters. So tell me what you think about the feet, and who do you think is going to have the better cardio if this is a wrestling and striking intensive matchup?
Yeah, I think you're right. I definitely think both of those go to Deron Winn. But Phil Hawes, his cardio has been improving, man. He has one hell of a gas tank. We saw it in the Kyle Dawkins fight all the way into the 3rd round. And maybe it's because I'm a biased Dawkins fan, but I thought the only round he won was round 3, and he really started to put it on Kyle. And you could kind of see the mentality change. But with all those muscles, I feel like I always write for Phil Hawes. My first comment is thick with like 5 C's because homeboy is massive. He has so much muscle on him, but it doesn't really affect his gas tank. It's one of the crazy things, man. He stays powerful through the entire fight. But Deron Winn, he has this crazy way of finding situations that work very well for him. We saw it in the, I'm gonna call him the DC fight. We're always comparing this dude to DC, but when DC knocked out Stipe, it was one of those short hooks that just come right across the chin when you're not expecting it in the break, in the exchange, and that's where Deron Winn shines, man. And I really do think this guy, he's working hard at AKA. His cardio's on point, and being a little bit smaller of a fighter, he doesn't have as much to expend. You know what I'm saying? Like, He doesn't have as much muscle mass. He doesn't have as much distance to have to cut. Well, I guess he has more distance covered, but not as much length on the limbs to be able to have to work it harder, if that makes sense. So I'm giving both of those to Deron Winn, man.
Yeah, man, I'd have to agree with you right there. And what's interesting is when we're talking about takedown average per 15 minutes, we got about almost 3 for Phil Hawes at about 40%, and almost 5 for Deron Winn at 50+%. So that's going to be interesting. However, when we're talking about takedown defense, Deron Winn has 0% takedown defense in the UFC, which is really interesting to me. I don't really know how that works because you don't really see him getting put on his butt too often, right? And if he does, it's for him to be able to kind of like reverse the position and then get on top. For Phil Hawes, he has 100% takedown defense. So that's the question. Like you said, AJ, you're like, I haven't really seen the man on his back. Well, for good reason, right? That's just the big question that it comes down to me, man. Both of these dudes are 32 years old, man. Both of these dudes are in spots where they probably both need a big win. I mean, Phil Hawes, if we're looking at UFC record, he's 3-0. Deron Winn is 2-2. So Winn probably needs the win no pun intended, Winn needs the win more than Phil Hawes. But when we're talking about notable wins, AJ, Kyle Dawkins and Nasruddin Imavov are actually the only 2 decision wins for Phil Hawes in his last 5. The other ones have been knockout round 1, TKO round 1, TKO round 1, man. So that's where I just want to like kind of frame it like that, right? So this dude is now coming into his own. He even said it in a post-fight presser after one of them. He's like, yeah, man, I don't want to just be knocking these dudes out. I want to show that I can go all 3 rounds. For Deron Winn, that's never really an issue, man. He's basically he got 3 decision wins in his entire career, 4 knockouts, no submissions. I mean, the dude can get it done over 3 rounds, man. We've seen it time and time again. So ultimately, AJ, let's give our picks on this one, man. Who are you going with? Are you going with the Phil Hawes, who's on a 7-fight win streak, or Deron Winn, who just got a bounce-back win after his loss to GM3? Who are you going with?
Man, I'm going with Hawes, and I'm going Hawes by decision. I think this one's going to be a grinder of a match. Yeah. We have 2 dudes who, like we said already, can wrestle like the best of anybody out there in the game right now can. But we might see that when fire faces fire, it kind of nullifies each other, and we might see a standing battle, which I give the advantage to in Hawes on that one, at least for the power. Deron Winn has the speed, but what I like about Hawes, he has really good composure. We were seeing it in the Dawkins fight that he's able to weather the storm, keep a solid chin, and he has a granite chin out there in Phil Hawes. And it might just be because he beat my boy Kyle Dawkins, so I'm going to have to go with Phil Hawes on this one by decision. Who you got and why?
Okay, right on, man. So I was really going back and forth. This was like a coin toss to me, regardless of the very skewed odds, right? I mean, look, Deron Winn at plus 230, Hawes at minus 280. But this was a coin flip to me because I think Hawes can really hurt Winn on the feet if he's able to keep him behind that long jab. Like, Hawes has a really good jab when he uses it. But the speed advantage for Deron Winn, the ability to grab Hawes and flip him on his head, even though he's a bigger man, I think it's all there for Deron Winn, man. I just think there's something about Deron Winn that is constantly discounted when it shouldn't be. And I think partially it's due to the visual optics of, oh, this little guy is going to beat the big muscle guy in Phil Hawes. You can't look at fights like that. That's not what makes a fight. You can have all the muscles in the world and get your ass knocked the fuck out. You know what I'm saying? That's just how it goes. So I'm going to take a shot here, man. And I don't feel super confident about it, but I do think there's a little something in the value to be had at plus 230. And yeah, folks, we need to look at whatever the prop is for this fight going all 3 rounds, because I do think that there's a very good likelihood of this going the distance. So I'm going to go Deron Winn via decision. I think it's going to be a grinder matchup, and it's probably going to go, winner is going to go 2-1. You know, it's going to be 2 rounds to 1. I don't think it's going to be a shutout by any stretch of the imagination. But all right, AJ, we can move on to the next one. Okay, so AJ, man, I'm going to be honest with you here. Sabina Mazo opens up as a minus 155 favorite, and she's one of my favorite young prospects on the UFC roster right now. However, she's fighting a killer in Mariya Agapova at plus 130 comeback. And I need to just ask you off of the bat, man. Mariya Agapova, when we're looking at her UFC tenure, she's 1-1. Sabina Mazo, is 3-2. But I was kind of confused at the plus 130 underdog for Agapova, and the reason why is because she's a fast starter, bro. She comes out blitzing, killing people, trying to take people's heads off. And maybe the odds makers are a little jaded by her last performance and this happens sometimes, AJ, her last performance against Shanna Dobson. I think Shanna Dobson was like a plus 800 underdog. Agapova came out, gassed herself out, got TKO'd in the second round. So sometimes, AJ, believe it or not, the odds makers will try to they'll be a little petty and try to get a little revenge and be like, all right, you let us down so big last time, we're going to make you an underdog this time. Do you think that's fair assessment, that she should be a plus 130 underdog in this one?
Not really, man. I don't know. That kind of I almost had it the other way. You know, the numbers are fine. They're close enough to where it's not too big of a deal. Nobody's that big of a margin going for. But I almost had it the other way, man, where Agapova is the favorite in this one. And we saw the only real flaw that I can really highlight for Agapova is her wild, crazy side. But that's a good thing as well. You know, yeah. Like it's a double-edged sword on that one. You live by that, you die by that. And the only reason is because other fighters are able to capitalize off those small little mistakes you made. I just don't know if Sabina Mazo's there in her career yet, if that makes sense. She's a very decorated fighter, but we're going to see what's the real deal coming forward on this one.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. So the Columbian Queen, Sabina Mazo, very, very disappointing performance in her last fight against Alexis Davis, man. You know, basically she got exposed, and what got exposed was that there's one very clear way to beating her, and that is putting her on her butt and keeping her there. For Sabina Mazo, don't get me wrong, man. As a striker, she's long. She has a beautiful jab, man. Crisp boxing combinations. But let's not forget, Mariya Agapova is a 2-time national champion in Kazakhstan for boxing specifically. So she got nice hands. She got nice kicks. And but I do think, I'm not going to lie, I think Sabina Mazo is a little more technical on the feet. I think that she's a little more crisp with the straight punches. But there is a little bit of, there's an X factor sometimes to these fights that we talk about, AJ. And one of the X factors for Agapova, I think, is tenacity. I think she's more mean than Mazo. And sometimes you need to be mean in the cage. You can't let that fog your judgment and all that stuff, but you need to be mean, put your foot on the gas, walk in there and say, I'm going to stay in your face and there's nothing you can do about it. For Mazo, I get a little bit of that tentativeness of like, oh, okay, I'm just going to jab, da-da-da. I'm just going to try to, but I'm not going to walk forward. I'm just going to keep you at bay with my jab. But then again, AJ, isn't that the Diaz style, right? Death by a thousand cuts. Like, doesn't that have its advantages as well?
Oh, it definitely has its advantage. I feel like both sides have. This is a good matchmaking fight because both sides complement each other very well. Sure. When Mariya Agapova is kind of coming in on that blitz style, head down, swinging for the fences, Sabina Mazo has really good head movement and circles out very well. So she's able to circle out, get a counter shot on Agapova. We might see something different going forward, but I do think Mazo sometimes relies on that tentativeness a little bit too much, whereas Agapova relies on her excitement or her chaos a little bit too much. So it's a very interesting matchup we have on our hands right here. So
what does it mean to you, AJ, when a fighter pre-fight basically gives out their intention? So Sabina Mazo said she's like, I'm going to find a way to finish this fight by any means possible. I'm like, okay, I hear you, but isn't that what all fighters are supposed to say, right? Like, it's kind of like the status quo on that. Does that mean anything to you, though?
Not really. I feel like a lot of the time, sometimes it's just talk. Like sometimes you got to sell the fight, especially when you're coming up in the divisions in this sport, especially for women. Sometimes a lot of people don't really like to watch it, so you gotta really go for it. And there's a lot of women. We were talking about it. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. A lot of women are really starting to find those finishes. Oh yeah. And if you're able to find the finishes in this division, you're able to get paid really highly. So I think it's really a lot of selling the fight and going forward. And everybody does have to say that kind of stuff. So
speaking of a finisher, Mariya Agapova 3-2 in her last 5, but listen, let's just say it. She lost a unanimous decision to Tracy Cortez in the Dana White Contender Series. She beat Connors submission round 1. She beat Santos TKO round 1, beat Hannah Cyphers submission round 1, and then lost to Shannon Dobson TKO round 2, man. So she's either going out on her shield or she's out there killing the game. Either way, both of these fighters are 9-2 in their MMA career. 2 knockouts for Mazo, 3 for Agapova, 4 submissions for Agapova, 1 for Mazo, 6 decisions for Mazo, 2 decisions for Agapova. But that's what I wanted to point out, AJ. There's one clear, definitive advantage Agapova has in this fight. It's not the boxing, it's not any of that stuff. It's, I'm going to grab you, I'm going to put the backpack on you, and I'm going to put you to sleep. The rear naked choke is her favorite position to get on these fighters. She's got it time and time and time again. And if Sabina Mazo, if she had trouble against Alexis Davis just on a regular single leg getting put on your butt, I think Agapova can mix up the boxing combination, snatch the neck, and it's going to be a very short night if she can lock that body lock on her, man. That's really the key, is she gets the body lock from behind, and it's only a matter of time until something's happening. She's going to grab the arm, you're going to go for the arm, you're going to leave your neck exposed, you're going to grab the neck, she's going to go back and forth until you leave one open, and then you tap. So do you see that the same way that I see it, AJ, or do you think Mazo, maybe she's been working her ass off in camp saying, I've just somehow perfected grappling in like the last 6 months or something, you know what I mean? What do you think?
It's that right there is the tall task at hand, Derick, perfecting the grappling in 6 months. I don't think anybody can do that unless you're Superman. Yeah. So I do think there's a clear hole in Mazo's game, and she's probably been working on it. She has to be. At this level, you have to be finding those holes and fixing them. And Mariya Agapova, when she gets that going, it's a lot of the time in round 1. Mm-hmm. The majority of her submissions happen when you're dry, when you're working, and things just kind of happen in a flurry. So if Mazo's able to make it past round 1, that's where we're really going to start to see, the techniques come into play on this one.
Absolutely. I think the real question comes in is, has Agapova learned her lesson in terms of needing to pace herself and not coming out so crazy? And has Mazo worked on the grappling? So there's 2 questions that we're going to get answers to on Saturday night. Let me just talk about a couple of numbers here. So Mariya Agapova, in her last fight, she fought, or not her last fight, 2 fights ago, Hannah Cyphers, right? She fought a strawweight, so she was much bigger, much longer. And a lot of her fights, she's the bigger, longer fighter. Mazo is the bigger, longer fighter in this fight. She got a 1-inch reach advantage, 2-inch reach advantage, 1-inch height advantage on this one. But when we're talking about numbers, significant strikes landed per minute, Mazo is almost at 7 at a 45% clip, man. That's that death by 1,000 touches right there, right? That's just touching. Agapova, who I think has the power advantage, is landing about 4 significant strikes per minute at a 50% 90% clip, man. So she's hitting you very often with power shots, right? So it's a little bit different. When we're talking about takedowns, 66% takedown accuracy for Agapova at about 1 takedown per 15 minutes. Mazo's not really trying to get you to the ground. 66% takedown defense for Mazo, 33% takedown defense for Agapova. So very interesting there. Both of them don't really throw up too many submissions, but we already know Agapova, that's part of her game plan, throwing the submissions. Now, with all that being said, AJ, do we find true and real value in that plus 130 comeback in Mariya Agapova?
Yeah, I do. I do a lot, man. And that's why I was kind of surprised she was the underdog. I really find a lot of value there because and it's back to this Johnny Walker thing we saw last week. If she's able to rein down or pull the reins in a little bit, kind of worry about that gas tank going forward, we might see her get a little better. We might see her get a little worse. So that's going to be interesting to see how she actually does it. If she's able to stay that wild woman that she knows and keeps on the winning ways, I think that's her best route to victory on this one. I see a lot of value in that, and I'll actually give my pick now, man. I'm going to Agapova by TKO round 2. I do think Sabina Mazo is going to be able to weather that storm. TKO might be submission, but I'm going TKO round 2. I think Sabina Mazo has the technique advantage on the feet, but Agapova has a strength. She has that wild card. She has that X factor that's not really attainable, if that makes sense, or not really. You can't really put your hand on it, but she has that there for her, and it makes her a very exciting fighter to watch going forward. So like I said, I'm going Agapova TKO round 2.
I gotcha. And I think you're talking intangible right there, right? You can't touch it. Intangible right there. So I'm going Mariya Agapova as well, man. And you know what? Sabina Mazo has never been knocked out, never been submitted, but I think that might change on Saturday night because Agapova is an angry, mean fighter. And when she gets you on the ground, she's elbows, punches, everything. She's trying to take your head off, man. No jokes, no games. But then again, Mazo, like I said, she's one of my favorite prospects. So there's no disrespect here. It's just one of those things where I see one more of a well-rounded fighter who is probably being a little jaded by the odds makers. But if you've been watching the fights, you can see, man, it's kind of crazy to sit here and think, especially because Agapova was such a big name kind of coming into the UFC, very hyped up. It'll be interesting. I'm going a TKO round 3, man. I see a ground and pound finish personally, but we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be a very, very fun matchup in the women's flyweight division. Hopefully we get somebody that gets on that right track. Maybe we can get a challenger for Valentina Shevchenko in the next couple of years or something. I don't know. At this rate, Shevchenko's holding on to that belt for the next 10 fucking years or something, man. We'll see. All right, AJ. Now, this is a big one. This is a big ranked matchup here in the flyweight division. We got number 9 ranked Tim Elliot, man, versus number 11 ranked Matheus Nicolau. And this is interesting to me, AJ, because I think that one of these fighters is very well respected in Tim Elliot, right? We know Tim Elliot. We know the man he's a blood and guts fighter. He comes to grapple. He comes to bang. You already know what kind of fight you're going to get with Tim Elliot. Matheus Nicolau is one of these dudes who is on his second stint in the UFC, and he's kind of on a come up right now. His last one was huge against Manel Kape, right? Who somehow, some way isn't ranked in the UFC's flyweight rankings, man. I still think because of the skill set and all that, come on, you should throw a little respect on the name. Neither way, man. Glory MMA and Fitness is who Tim Elliot is fighting out of, so he's under the tutelage of the great James Krause. Matheus Nicolau is at Jackson Wink MMA and Lutrell Yi MMA, man. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, man. Both of these dudes can grapple. Both of these dudes can strike. However, I see a grappling advantage by Elliot and a striking advantage by Nicolau. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say that as well. Yep, definitely the grappling advantage for him.
But that's the thing that makes this a little interesting is because Tim Elliot, we know the game plan. Get you on the ground, and somehow, some way, he's going to smother you until we get to round 3, till he can finally choke you and put you to sleep or whatever the case may be. Nicolao is really good. I believe he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself, man. This dude is really good off of his back. He's really good when he's sitting there getting on top control. And the thing about his grappling, it's intelligent. And what I mean by that, AJ, is I think that Nicolao isn't going to rush into these positions where he gets himself, reversed or things like that. He's going to be very strategic. He'll drop you, and he's not just going to rush up on top and just try to ground and pound all crazy like a wild man. He'll sit there, pick his angle. All right, I'm going to get here. I'm going to put my hand around your arm. I'm going to go for the arm triangle. I'm going to go for the, you know what I mean? He's very strategic, where Tim Elliot is more of a wild man, in my opinion. So what did we see in his last fight against Jordan Espinosa, right? We saw a clinic on the ground, right? Probably a little bit of that civilian justice that we get for Jordan Espinosa and some of the stuff he was going through, but that's neither here nor there. However, Tim Elliot, man, on his entries, I say he's reckless on his entries, man. He's there to get hit. And Matheus Nicolau has crispy boxing, man. His left hook is devastating, and he's a true volume fighter with a great gas tank and crisp punches, man. If you're able to outstrike Manel Kape, I mean, that's very telling right there, man. So do you think Tim Elliot is going to be able to withstand whatever happens on the feet before he can get the fight to the ground, or do you think this is going to be a stand and bang type war? What do you think?
It's going to be interesting, man, because Matheus Nicolau, he's, like you said it already, Derick, he's very intelligent in the way he goes about things. He's not just going to rush in. He's not just going to let Tim Elliot put that pressure on him. And Elliot, he's very susceptible to knees and uppercuts up the middle, man. He's really he sets the hands up nicely, but he sets them up for a takedown. And a lot of the times he'll just kind of throw those hands out, head facing down, looking very susceptible for the knee. He's a grinder of a fighter, though, and even in his last fight against Jordan Espinosa, he was so wild going forward in the ground and pound that he was able to get cut from the bottom. From the bottom, Jordan Espinosa threw up an elbow, caught him right on the top of the head, and you just see blood start leaking down. And that's kind of Tim Elliott's style, man. He doesn't care if it gets bloody in there. He doesn't care if it gets a little bit grimy. That's really what he's working towards, and he's kind of that blood and guts fighter that you were talking about, and I think that's his style. But Matheus Nicolau has this really weird way of going about things. He's always on the back foot, or at least most of the time he's always on the back foot. He'll feign a takedown and come back up with a big right hand and hurt you, man. His ground game is very strong, so everybody has to respect that feint, but he's coming up for that knockout too. Very good pressure fighter. It's going to be interesting to see how Nicolao actually sets this up going forward, because I like the way he circles out. He doesn't really give you the option to get close, lock the hands up behind the butt, and dump you. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, man. What do you think?
Well, I agree with you, man. You know, the one thing that I do think is an advantage for Tim Elliot is he's an unorthodox puncher. He kind of got those like Dominic Cruz style overhands, right? Just weird, wacky styles. And that's the thing, is you could be as technical as you want, but when you're a technically trained boxer, kickboxer, whatever, there's certain ways you move to defend yourself. And when someone throws something that's not technical, you don't know where to go, you know, because it's coming from crazy, wild angles. And that's the thing. Tim Elliot is wild, man. So that's an advantage, definitely. I truly believe that is an advantage. But Nicolao has a little bit of an advantage because he fought Manel Kape in his last fight, who was a southpaw. So he's going back-to-back southpaws right here, man. So it's like, all right, man, it's just another test, another taste of what we're doing. And I think the man is on a come-up. Now, tell me what you think about this, man, because this is almost on paper, not in reality, but on paper, this is almost just like a pick 'em, basically. And if you look at the odds, it's kind of right there. I mean, plus 160, minus 190. This is closer to a pick'em than anything else. But 3 knockouts for Tim Elliot, 6 submissions, and 8 decisions. That's for Tim Elliot, right? For Nicolao, we got 4 knockouts, 5 submissions, 7 decisions. So if you think about it, it's almost, I mean, we right there. However, in terms of losses, only 2 knockout losses for Nicolao. That's the only way he's ever lost. Never lost a decision, never lost via submission. Tim Elliot has been knocked out once, submitted 5 times, and lost 5 decisions. However, the man, he just has a lot more fights. I mean, 17, 11, and 1 for Elliott, 16, 2, and 1 for Nicolao. So ultimately here, AJ, man, notable wins for Elliott, Mark De La Rosa, Luis Smolka, Ryan Benoit, and Jordan Espinosa, and then Manel Kape and Luis Smolka for Nicolao. Who wins this fight, why, and how?
Yeah, I'm going with this one, man. I'm going with the wild man, Tim Elliot, and I'm going by decision. I don't think he's going to be able to finish Nicolao. And I had don't get me wrong, no hate to Nicolao. I almost picked him on this one too, man. But I think Elliott's going to be leading the dance, taking advantage of that ground game, working forward. Where Nicolao, he'll have the striking advantage. I just don't think he's going to be able to finish Tim Elliot. And if you're not finishing him and he's able to get his hands on you, it's going to be a long night going forward. So like I said, man, I'm going Tim Elliot by decision. Either way, I think this one's going to be a lot of fun to watch, man. Who you got and why?
Absolutely. So I agree with you that I think this is going to be a really, really fun fight, but I think it's also interesting how all of us, we could look at a matchup and we could visualize it in our head and we could all have different kind of outcomes to how the fight will play out. Because what I see is Tim Elliot coming in recklessly, leading the dance, and Nicolao counter-striking his ass off, man. Just touching him up. Left hook here, crisp combination, circle out, get back. Tim Elliot goes for the crazy takedown. Nicolao sprawls out, gets to the back, pushes off. What are you doing? You know what I mean? I see it like that. And I see that Tim Elliott's aggressiveness and his pressure style, which oftentimes leads to takedowns, is going to be a lot tougher to grab onto Nicolao, who's a very experienced grappler in it of itself. So I'm going Matheus Nicolau via decision. I think that the man is just on a momentum streak, man. I think he has really, really, really good momentum, and he is kind of surging up the division. Man went from non-ranked to like number 14 to number 11 really quickly, man. So So a big win here. You take that number 9, if not go higher, and then we're looking at top 5s and ups from there, man. So this is going to be a big fight for either one of them because Nicolau's on a 3-fight win streak and Elliott's on a 2-fight win streak. But Elliott is a little bit older, man. He's 34. Nicolao is 28, man. So time is running out for Tim Elliot. And neither of these fighters have nicknames, man. Sometimes that bums me out because I'm just like, come on, man. You guys are established.
That's what that good training will do for you, like Matheus Nicolau, man, getting that training in the great state of New Mexico, man. That's how he's coming on the rise right there.
There you go.
But, so it's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next one, AJ. All right, co-main event, man. Rude boy, Randy Brown. He opens up as a -240 favorite against the Nite Train and Jared Gooden, who's a +200 underdog here, man. And I agree with the line, AJ. I'm not going to lie to you. Randy Brown is a very experienced man. Fighting at welterweight, he's 13-4, 7-4 in the UFC. And Jared Gooden, not Jared Gordon, who fought last week, but Jared Gooden. Listen, man, 18-6, but he's 1-2 in the UFC, and he got his first UFC win in his last fight via knockout. The question here, AJ, how did this fight get matched up? I'm actually kind of curious. Randy Brown is a much bigger name than Jared Gooden right now, and I wonder if it was just like hey, do you want the fight? We'll take it. I mean, if you look at his last fight, Randy Brown dominated Alex Oliveira, man. That was an absolute domination. He was much bigger, much longer, but you look at the fight prior to that, man, Vicente Luque put it on his ass, bro, like bad. But Vicente Luque is a bad man, so that's not to be too unexpected. For Jared Gooden, really, man, he's fought Alan Joban, where he lost via decision to a very experienced veteran in the game. That was his UFC debut. Lost to Abubakar Nurmagomedov, which was a unanimous decision. I mean, come on, that's a great boxer, great wrestler right there. And then got the win over Nicholas Stolze, where I picked Stolze in that one. I was proved very, very wrong. So how did this fight get matched up, AJ?
I think it has to be one of those, you want to fight? Sure, let's take it. I got one on my contract because I don't really see any heat behind this, if that makes sense. Like there's no build up, there's no shit talk, there's no history behind either of these guys, and it's really two guys on the come up, really. I mean, Randy Brown has a little bit more heat behind his name, so he's not necessarily on the come up anymore. But Randy Brown, he struggles with the big names. You know, he has that L to Nico Price, he has that L to Vicente Luque. He's beat some other big ones like Brian Barberena, Alex Oliveira, but kind of past their time, if that makes sense. We're seeing those guys on the decline. Where Jared Gooden, man, he's if any chance is coming up to make his name, it's this fight right here. It's going to be very interesting to see. I think it was a little more ballsy by Randy Brown to take this fight than Jared Gooden. I think Randy Brown has a lot more to lose. What do you think?
Oh, I absolutely agree with you, man. And if you look at the thing that I've kind of noticed about Randy Brown, I'm a big fan, dude. Don't get me wrong. I'm a really big fan of this dude. I love the length. I love all that. But look at this matchup, man. He's not bigger or longer than Jared Gooden. He's 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. Jared Gooden is 6'4" with a 77-inch reach. So now you're getting a little taste of that. All right, man, you ain't the bigger, stronger dude. I think Jared Gooden is a little thicker too. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing where I've seen him struggle just a little bit, right? Against Vicente Luque, you could just see like Randy Brown was just like, he's skinny and lanky versus Vicente Luque. Against other guys, no, he's big, he's sizable, all that, but he doesn't have that thickness, you know, Jared Gooden, you look at the man, he's a specimen. I mean, he's an Adonis. He's chiseled like a Greek god. Like, what are we talking about here? So let's talk about the actual fight, though, man. Solid jab does Randy Brown have, man. No pun intended on that one either. And he's very poised on the ground, man. His BJJ chops are legit. I mean, those long limbs, man, you wrap those legs around somebody, you get that long arm around the neck or something, and being a little skinnier, man, I'm telling you, the skinny guys, those blades are sharp right there. That's why Tony Ferguson is always so good at the submissions, just skinny with the sharp-ass fucking wrists and forearms, just choking people. But Jared Gooden, explosive athlete. So that's the question here, AJ. You can be really good at jiu-jitsu. You can be really good at wrestling, which, I mean, we saw Jared Gooden get, out-wrestled twice, basically, in his last 3 fights. But the man is very explosive, and I think that's going to play a big part into this. I think it's going to be tough to get him onto the ground unless Randy Brown is very technically sound here. Do you agree, or how do you see this one playing?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100% on that one. I think the only way Randy Brown's going to be able to get this one to the ground is in some weird exchange where things happen, he's not going to shoot a conventional blast double or even a single leg takedown. He's going to have to do some weird stuff where things just get going and it kind of just happens, kind of falls into his lap, almost like how it did for the Alex Oliveira, for the Cowboy Oliveira fight. He didn't shoot a blast double or anything. He just got up on the cage, put the backpack on him, got those long limbs surrounding him, little tarantula style, and was able to use his weight to get him to take down. So yeah, I agree with you though. Jared Gooden is a very gifted athlete. It's just going to see how he puts it together, how he puts the ones and twos together, because he does have nice head movement, good takedown defense, very snappy jab. It's just combining all of those with that athleticism that's going to take him far.
Well, what's interesting is that we saw in his last fight against Nicholas Stoltz, we saw the Jared Gooden that allowed him to storm onto the UFC scene. Before the UFC, man, we're like, this dude's knocking everybody out, bro. Like, one-hitter quitters, get the fuck out of there, right? Little bit of a mishaps in the UFC, and then he finally got it. So do you think, first off, that's a confidence booster for Gooden, of course. And do you think Randy Brown saw that and says, all right, man, I can't be reckless with this man because one right hand is going to put me to sleep. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? You're doing any tape on this guy, and you think this dude touches me. He has the heavyweight power at 170 and the speed of 170, so it's a very dangerous combination. Although, I don't know, man, because for that X factor that Brown has of that wild man style, that kind of unconventional, I'm here to scrap, I'm mean mugging, doing the whole stuff. I think that leads to a little bit of that intangible aspect that we were talking about with Randy Brown going forward. So I wouldn't leave as much of that behind as be as worrisome about it as Jared Gooden knocking you out. You got to be a little bit more on the advantage, thinking I'm going to knock this dude out, even though he has all the power going forward.
I got you, man. I will say this. It's odd because Jared Gooden is the more experienced fighter in terms of overall MMA bouts, 18-6 with Jared Gooden and 13-4 for Randy Brown. But Randy Brown 7-4 in the UFC. So we're talking about actual quality of opponents. I mean, Randy Brown has the edge there very clearly. Now, I want to say this is a very clear, striker versus striker grappler, right? Where Brown could just submit Gooden. But I do believe Gooden is like a BJJ brown belt, man. Like, he has BJJ chops himself, man. He just hasn't really been able to showcase that like that. 83% takedown defense for Gooden, 71% takedown defense for Randy Brown. And listen, man, this is going to be really interesting how it plays out because it's a fight ender versus, Randy Brown can end you in one punch too, man. So let's put some respect on his name as well. When we're talking about the notable wins for Randy Brown, we got Mickey Gall, Alex Oliveira, Warley Alves, and Brian Barberena, man. And he finished 3 of those 4 opponents. The only one he didn't finish there was Mickey Gall, interestingly enough. Now, Nicholas Stoltz is the only one for Gooden, man. It's going to be fun. It might be short. It might be long. We'll see what happens, AJ. But who are you going with and why?
I'm going with the rude boy on this one, man. I'm rocking with rude boy Randy Brown over here. And I'm going KO round 3. I think it's going to be interesting. I think I know it's this is a balls of your pick on my part as far as the finish goes. Yeah. This one could go either way, to be honest with you, man. I think Brown has a little bit more of that X factor, that chip on his shoulder where things kind of unpredictably happen, and I think that's the only way he's going to get the knockout. He's not going to get it by a technical, crisp 1-2 down the pipe or anything. Where Jared Gooden, he's very technical, and he's able to stay a little bit more calm in the pocket, where both that kind of favors a little bit of both of these guys. You have the wildness of Brown and the calmness of Gooden going forward. It's going to be very interesting. But like I said, I got Brown KO round 3. What about you, Derick? How you see it going down and why?
Well, listen, man, I think now is the time to capitalize if you're Jared Gooden. I really believe that, man. And I don't see how he could win the fight unless he knocks him out personally or finish him somehow, some way. I don't see how he could win the fight on points. But I'm going to take a flyer. And folks, what I mean when I say a flyer on a fighter specifically is that they have a shot of winning. Clearly not the greatest shot, but there is something that I'm seeing in the tape that can show up for a finish, a win, somehow, some way. So I'm going Jared Gooden on this one, man, believe it or not. Now, I'm going to a TKO round 2. I think Jared Gooden, one thing that I love about him, man, he has a sneaky jab/left hook. It starts off as a jab and pops over as a left hook, right? And I think he might have a speed advantage. I think Randy Brown is longer, right? And he's longer and lengthier, but Jared Gooden is faster and more explosive. So I'm going to pick Jared Gooden here because this is just momentum. Everything building up, man. He's coming off the big knockout win. He's probably got a little more confidence in himself. And now he's saying, give me whoever you want. Imagine he wins against Randy Brown, AJ. Imagine what that does for his stock. He's through the roof. So, like you said earlier, this is a lot more risk, a lot more pressure on Randy Brown himself, and I think he might be feeling that coming into fight night. So I'm going Jared Gooden, TKO round 2, man. So I'm taking the plus 200 underdog. And you'll see, folks, this is going to be my second pick out of the 5 where I have gone for the underdog, the big underdog, right? So not always guaranteed to win, but sometimes, AJ, what do we say on this program? You got to risk it to get the biscuit, and I'm taking a shot this one, man. So we'll see what happens, man. So let's move on to the next one. Move on to the main event. AJ, man. I'm really excited for this fight. And believe it or not, we got back-to-back weeks where we have two Brazilians duking it out in main events, man. So this is going to be a fun one. However, this truly is striker versus grappler here. Mackenzie Dern's the grappler. Marina Rodriguez is the striker. Now, Mackenzie Dern, she's been working with Jason Perillo over there at Black House MMA, private gym out there in California. I think she also gets a little bit of work done at RVCA, you know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, man, she's improved the boxing a little bit, right? We know, AJ, can we say this definitively? Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu in the women's strawweight and or flyweight division and or bantamweight division and or even go to the men's division, unmatched. Can we say that?
Unmatched, man. She's a killer out there. I was talking to one of the clients over at my gym, that I work at, and that's instantly what he thought. He was like, man, that Brazilian that's really good at jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh yeah, Mackenzie, that's what she's known for.
Yeah.
But yeah, unmatched brother out there.
I mean, let's look at the last five, man. Nina Nunes, submission round 1. That was an armbar. Vina Jandiroba, who is arguably the second best Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner in any of the women's divisions. That went to a unanimous decision. She got to work on the boxing there. However, Vina Jandiroba isn't the greatest striker in the world. She is a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I kill her in the jiu-jitsu. One of my favorite prospects. Miranda Marco, submission round 1. Hannah Cipher, submission round 1. And then she lost to another really, really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner in Amanda Ribas, right? So that's her only loss in her last 5 fights. But nonetheless, man, 7 submission wins for Mackenzie Dern, 4 decision wins, no knockouts, man. I mean, kind of to be expected. It's women's strawweight, right? But Marina Rodriguez is a bad woman, AJ. She is a bad, bad woman. And when it comes to the hands, listen, you want no piece of her, man. I don't want no piece of her. I want absolutely no problems because she'll put anybody's lights out. She's got the unanimous decision win against Michelle Waterson. Knocked out, Amanda Ribas twice in one fight right there, right? So TKO round 2. She lost to Carla Esparza, which we already know there's some grappling woes there for Marina Rodriguez, which is what makes this matchup interesting. Fought to a draw against Cynthia Calvillo, another really good grappler, but also she had her moments on the feet, man. She was really putting it on her. That was a very questionable draw on that one. And then Tisha Torres, unanimous decision. So let me ask you this, AJ. Who's got more pressure going into this fight? Both of these fighters, to me, are very well respected. Mackenzie Dern has a little bit of a higher number, and she wants to be fighting for a title soon. But at the same time, man, both are very young. 28 is Mackenzie Dern, 34 is Marina Rodriguez, but she got a later start to MMA. So what do you think?
I think the pressure on this one goes to Mackenzie Dern. She's kind of more so the name going forward. A lot of people know her, and especially she's the kind of the technician, and she's expected to get the submission. She's expected to get the dub. Whereas the scarier thing is when the girl can knock you out. You know, if everybody's worried about the submission, it's not as dangerous or not as scary, not as pressuresome going forward. Whereas that KO, you're always thinking about that KO in the back of your head. Like, and Marina Rodriguez, man, she has the reach. She has good in the chaos, very technical striking. And what I like about her, man, she has this swag to her that she knows she's a bad girl in there. Yeah, she's stunting on him when she's in the cage, and very little unnecessary movement. We've seen a lot of the times where girl fighters will be out there and they're kind of just throwing jabs, and you even hear the coaches say, you got to want to hit them. But not Marina Rodriguez, man, very technical out there. And it's going to be interesting. I'd give the pressure to Mackenzie Dern on this one. I feel like she almost needs, like everybody thinks she's going to win this one. So it builds up a little bit of that pressure going forward. Who you give it to?
I'd say Mackenzie Dern has a little more pressure on her. However, AJ, if Marina Rodriguez at all gets clipped on the feet, anything on the feet, man, that's going to be like red alert, sirens, everything. Like, yo, you're supposed to be this crazy striker. If Mackenzie Dern can have the littlest ounce of success on the feet against her, man, I think all morale goes out the window because we already know the jiu-jitsu is unmatched there. So it's like you're fighting the grappler. And if you're a striker, AJ, you're a striker being like, oh, you're a grappler? You want to fight me? Okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll see what happens. You can't wrestle right here, bro. This is striking. So it's going to be for both of them, man, because if Marina Rodriguez is able to get out of these, submission attempts or whatever, man, it's going to be the same thing. Mackenzie Dern is a very, very decorated gi and no gi Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. And she's under her pops is Megaton, man. So like, come on, that's a very like a legendary jiu-jitsu family name right there. Ultimately though, here, AJ, Marina Rodriguez, man, she got those devastating crosses, man. Right cross, she can go with the jab. That's going to put it on you, man. Rarely opens up her guard off of her back, though, AJ. I think that might be a problem because, if you are on your back and your legs are crossed around your opponent, that is called a closed guard, and that does absolutely nothing for you but keep your opponent on top of you. So ultimately, people look at it as a stalling method, but I think for people who aren't very well versed in jiu-jitsu, and don't get me wrong, Marina Rodriguez, I believe she's a purple belt, so she is legit. She got BJJ chops. You just got to be able to open that thing up, man, get a foot on the hip and escape, do something. But the one thing that is really interesting that I don't know how Mackenzie Dern is going to face on it is when you get bruised, battered, and cut up, because Marina Rodriguez is throwing elbows off of her back, ground and pound off of her back. And when Mackenzie Dern, I believe it was against Jan Jadoba, I want to say it was against Marcos or Janjado, but she got her nose broken. And her coach was all like, she was like, is my nose broken? He's like, oh, you're fine. You know what I mean? But her nose was fucking sideways, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't know how she's going to be reacting if she's getting bloodied up, cut up, all that craziness. We haven't really seen too much of that from Mackenzie Dern. She gets out of her fights pretty unscathed, generally speaking. AJ, the big fight that we needed to look out for in terms of film preparation, I'm sure you did the same thing I did, is I look back at both of these fighters against Amanda Ribas and see how they faced. And Mackenzie Dern, let's just say this, AJ. Now, this was, 4 fights ago, so there's been a lot of improvement since then, and I believe that was her first fight post-pregnancy. And I already told you that, AJ, there is a curse. After you have a baby and your first fight back, it's never going to go good. Nina Nunes, she gets submitted immediately by Mackenzie Dern. So, but I will say this. Mackenzie Dern, if she can't get the single leg going, which is her favorite thing to get a takedown, it's a single, not a blast double, not anything like that. It's the single leg. If she can't get it done and is stuck on the feet, man, it is a long night. There's going to be a lot of problems there, man, because she's going to be chasing you. She's going to be trying to go wild with those crazy boxing attacks. Heavy pressure because she's a jiu-jitsu ace and she doesn't care if she gets taken down. That's where she wants to be anyways. And Marina Rodriguez could take real big advantage of that, AJ. Do you see that happening at all, man? We're talking 5 rounds. That's a lot of rounds for you not to get put on your butt. Every round starts out on the feet, but that's a lot of rounds to not get put on your butt. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard, man, because I did the exact same thing. I looked at the Amanda Ribas fights going forward, and Amanda Ribas was able to put Marina Rodriguez down. But like you said, the second she gets up on her feet, she is a dangerous fighter. It's almost like night and day how dangerous she is. And she's very dangerous on the ground, don't get me wrong. Marina Rodriguez, she has the elbows. She has like that crazy ground and pound from the bottom where she'll be hitting you the whole time, but she just keeps the guard closed, kind of working something a little different there. But I think Mackenzie Dern, if she doesn't get the fight to the ground, like you said, it's going to be a long night, but her mentality is improving. It's improving a lot since that Amanda Ribas fight. She's really kind of had a turnaround, and I think once she goes mama bear mode and she's really able to kind of get the hands going a little bit, kind of feel that swagger going forward, we're going to see a different Mackenzie Dern in the stand-up for this one. I think she's been improving leaps and bounds from those fights. And I believe Amanda Ribas is her only loss, if I'm not mistaken. I have it as 11-1, but Amanda Ribas is her only loss. Yeah. And she's really made leaps and bounds, turns on the striking. Don't get me wrong, I do think Marina Rodriguez has the advantage in the striking, but don't count Mackenzie Dern out. Don't think she's only a specialist going forward, folks. She's very dangerous on the hands as well. And we saw it in the Nunes fight. She was so worried about the hands, or like the hands were getting pieced. She was piecing her up that she was able to take the fight to the ground and get that armbar victory going forward. This one, it's interesting because I do think Marina Rodriguez there's value in that 135 plus point deficit. There's definitely things there. Marina Rodriguez, I was going back and forth with this one. I'm not really sure who's going to win this one because it all depends on who gets the advantage of the night going forward. Would you agree with that, Derick?
I absolutely agree with you there, but I do want to say this, man. There's one fight that stood out to me so much that was very telling on how this fight could possibly play out. Would you agree with me, AJ, that Carla Esparza is one of the best wrestlers in the women's strawweight division currently? So, if you do agree with me there, then if you look at just paper, right? If we don't watch fights and we just look at paper, we say, oh, she lost to Esparza, she probably got out-wrestled, whatever, right? Did she get out-wrestled? Yeah, but that fight was a lot closer than, it was a split decision. It was a lot closer than what just the numbers show, right? So Marina Rodriguez, if you look at who was more damaged at the end of the fight, it was Carla Esparza, man. Her face was bloodied up. She had a huge hematoma on her eyebrow, you know what I'm saying? And also because Marina Rodriguez was throwing elbows off of her back, just throwing all those punches, right? Now, the big thing that was interesting is that Carla Esparza, you're shooting for the takedown. You have to be able to close the distance, shoot for the takedown. She would do that, and she'd have one leg, and Marina Rodriguez wouldn't be completely down, and she made her pay every time, raining down big strikes, right? And what did I tell you, AJ? In jiu-jitsu, or in MMA against jiu-jitsu fighters, they say a black belt, every time you punch them in the face, their belt ranking decreases one bit. So you go from a black belt to a purple, to a brown belt, to a purple belt, to a blue belt, to a white belt, right? Every time you're getting punched in the face. So this is mixed martial arts. This is not just jiu-jitsu. However, if Mackenzie Dern grabs your arm, she's kind of Ronda Rousey-esque with the arm bars and all that stuff. But Marina Rodriguez has a knack for punching you in your face to not make you so uncomfortable by getting hit in your face that you let go of the arm or that you let go of the neck or whatever. You let go of whatever you got. But I do think it's a very tall task in front of Marina Rodriguez. However, AJ, to sum this all up in its entirety, I do believe that the winner of this fight moves on to that next tier of fighters. I think they're in the same tier right now. If we're going like, the way I look at it, AJ, it's kind of like in fantasy football. You'll be like, here's my top 24 running backs, right? But we have tiers of running backs, like tier 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like, Saquon Barkley, he's a different level than, Nick Chubb or whatever. Anyways, the point being there, probably a poor analogy, is that Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez are like, to me, in that tier 2 of like the women's strawweight division. You're not with the Rose Namajunas and the Weili Zhangs and whatnot, and you're not sitting there with the Angela Hills and the Ashley Yoders. Like, it's just different tiers. And the winner of this advances up to that tier number 1, where you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be ready to fight the champion, because Marina Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern are tough tests in and of himself. Mackenzie Dern has a very clear jiu-jitsu advantage against anybody. Marina Rodriguez, let's just peek into the future for just a split second, AJ. Do you think Marina Rodriguez on the feet can probably hang very well with a Rose Namajunas or a Weili Zhang?
I'm sorry, Derek. I can't hear a damn thing you just said. I don't know if you hear that going outside, but this dude literally just started blasting leaves or something.
Okay, no worries. I can't hear any of that, so no worries at all. But can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I got the monitor a little closer. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I just want to say, do you think that that Marina Rodriguez on the feet can hang with a Rose Namajunas or a Weili Zhang on the feet right now?
I definitely think she's I agree with you. She's in that like tier 2 phase. She's right there though. She's literally like so close that once she improves upon her ground game, she's going to be able to jump up into tier 1. But as far as the striking goes, yes, 100%, man. Those hands are crisp. And she doesn't, what's crazy about her, about Marina Rodriguez, she doesn't mind fighting off the back foot because she knows she has that crack on her.
Oh, yeah.
She's easily able to get that pop on that shots and see the counter strike and see the holes that are being presented to her and has that striking advantage. So I'd agree with you. She can go with some of the best of them in the division as far as striking goes.
All right, understood. So, yeah, AJ, now I'm hearing a little bit of the leaf blower, but it's all right, folks. Sometimes that's what happens when we out here trying to do our job, man. People are inconvenienced and all that. But, hey, man, that's the main card picks, folks. We just gave it to you. Or did we? Actually, we didn't even give the pick on there. I'm going Marina Rodriguez, AJ. I'm going Marina Rodriguez, and I'm going TKO round 3. I think the power is going to be too much. I think that Mackenzie Dern is going to be trying for the single leg, catch an elbow, catch an uppercut, catch a right cross. I don't know what it's going to be. Another flyer I'm going here, but I'm very confident in Marina Rodriguez in this fight, man. Mean Brazilian, number 6, ready to go to that top 3 or 4 right there. Who is your pick and why, AJ?
Yeah, I agree with you, Derek. If this stays standing, Marina Rodriguez can get the KO. But personally, I'm going with Dern, man. I'm going Dern, and I'm going by decision. It's going to be a good fight. This is good. This is another one where I was literally sitting there probably 10 minutes just thinking, like, how is this going to play out? Because if Mackenzie Dern can get the takedown, it's going to be a long night. But Marina Rodriguez has that crazy stuff off the bottom where she cuts her and she starts worrying about protecting her face and stuff. She's not able to get the submission. Things can go very chaotic in the circle, man, when it starts really going forward. I just think Dern is a little bit more well-rounded, and the hands have been improving so much that we're going to see something different coming out of her. So I'm going Dern by decision on this one, man.
All right, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And I'm not going to lie to you, AJ. I do think that Mackenzie Dern is in the best shape of her life right now. I've never seen her in better shape, personally. So with that being said, folks, that's the main card picks. We gave it to you. Drop a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. We appreciate you. Drop a comment, because if you drop a comment, we'll be able to interact with you, be able to get all that good stuff going. You already know how it goes, folks. And we only got one last piece of business. You see, if you watch it, folks, you see my brother AJ over there. He got a thing to the ear, man, because look at these inconvenient motherfuckers out here, man. All right, AJ, let's hit the fight of the night real quick. I think that we only got 10 bouts, man. So you know what I mean? There's only a couple ways we can go here. And you just throw yours out real fast for me.
Yeah, man, fight of the night. I'm going Rude Boy Randy Brown versus Jared Gooden, man. I think it's going to be a banger of a fight. We're going to see a lot of stuff going forward. It might not go the distance, but, there's going to be a lot of blood in that octagon and a lot of the unpredictability, and this one has me picking that as fight of the night. What about you, Derek?
You know what, man? Tim Elliot versus Matheus Nicolau. That's got fight of the night written all over it for me, man. Two dudes who can grapple with the best of them, can strike with the best of them. You have a wild man versus a more composed wild man. Either way, man, it's going to be fun. Listen, folks, tune in, watch the prelims. We gave you all this. We basically covered just about every single bout on this card, man. So there's no excuse for you to tune in. Drop a little parlay. Only if you got $5 or $10, whatever, man. You can make a solid $80, $100 off of a $5 parlay if you hit them right, man. So depending on who you want to go with, you either go with my brother AJ, you go with me. Either way, we both got really, really good track records, man. So once again, folks, drop a like, subscribe, and if you like the content that we're putting out, go share it with somebody that you know cares about MMA or combat sports in general. Don't forget, this weekend, folks, we got Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury, the trilogy going on. That's going to be a banger, man. I'm rooting for the Gypsy King. AJ, I don't know who you're going with. Real quick, you going Gypsy King on that one?
I'm going with the Gypsy King on this one, man. I think he's got just everything going for him on this one. I think there's a lot of doubt in that Deontay Wilder camp. And I think a lot of it's talk, but we'll see coming forward, man.
And I'll just say this, man. I can't respect somebody who makes an excuse and can't lose honorably. You win with honor, you lose with honor, and Deontay Wilder is doing nothing but making excuses, man. I was the biggest fan of this guy coming up. But once he lost to Tyson Fury, it's not that, he lost, I'm not a fan anymore. It's the way that you went about your loss, man. Have a little humility. Come on, what are we talking about? He was the better man that night. It is what it is. I will say, AJ, we don't normally plug too many other people's podcasts here, but if you get a chance, AJ, I don't know if you've seen it, but anybody listening or watching, go watch the MMA Hour Tyson Fury's interview with Ariel Helwani, man. It was one of the most philosophical, stoic, poetic interviews I've seen in some time. Tyson Fury looks like a man on a mission ready to take somebody's head off. But like I said, folks, that's the fight of the night. This is it. We ain't got nothing else for you. Tune in with us Mondays, 8 a.m., Friday, 8 a.m. Short clips drop on Mondays and Fridays at noon. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you only care about one specific matchup, we got that covered for you. So we got all the playlists, all the details in the description down below, folks. We appreciate you for listening, hanging with us every single week. Look at this, AJ. This is episode number 85, man. 15 more, we had 100. Believe it or not, this was just an idea, just a concept not too long ago. And here we are running the thing, man. 2 episodes a week. Gotta love it. All right, AJ, got any last words for the people?
Man, for the people, man, drop a subscribe. Like Derick said early in the show, 85% of y'all that watch the show, we appreciate it. We love it. Now you just got to click that button. Hit us with a comment. Even on some of the old vids, man, I was going through watching. There's a couple people commenting, man. I see you. I love it. Join us with the best MMA show out here. We giving you the breakdowns. We giving you the props. Bro, come on. What else do you want, man? Just drop a subscribe. Help the homies out. Let us get that spread going. And other than that, we appreciate the love, man. Let's go.
Absolutely. You know it's a good one when my boy hits the Ric Flair woo on your ass, man. Come on. Let's go. All right, folks. Until next time. Peace.